As a country in the grip of poverty and a devastating HIV pandemic, causing a declining population, with many children left orphaned or abandoned, Swaziland was desperate for hope. A glimmer of hope stirred in a couple, Kevin and Helen Ward, who could no longer walk past the street children without doing something to help. Kevin answered God's call for him to leave the family business at Mountain Inn to begin ministering by reaching out to the least and to the most disadvantaged. He was led by God to Msunduza, where there were hundreds of street children living around the local shebeen. While ministering God's word, many adults and children would stand outside the drinking house and listen. It was clear that many children could not afford to go to school, and there was a desperate need to start a soup kitchen and to take time to minister to these children who were living on the street. At this time, an opportunity arose to rent a property on Johnson Street.
So we're here on Johnson Street, and 20 years ago this building was Club 701, a very seedy, dark nightclub. In fact, this whole street was just full of bars and nightclubs. It was a dangerous street to walk down. So we felt God called us to turn this place of darkness into a place of light in Ember Barn, and this is where the ministry started.
After some paint and time investment, the bar was transformed and they could start holding church meetings in the building. Each morning, they were concerned about the 15 children they found sleeping in a 2 square meter area outside the building. 14 out of the 15 children tested positive for HIV/AIDS. These children's family units had broken down, and so they had run onto the streets to find security. But instead, they only found more abuse and suffering.
So whilst one of the children was taking a shower, and there was a long line of children coming to collect clothes, take a shower, put on the new clothes, get their food, one of the children screamed. I went running around the building to find the nurse was attending the child, and young Innocent, his name was Innocent, had taken a shower and soap had gone into the ulcerated areas of his body. His mother had passed away. His grandmother was alive. No one was available to care for him. They didn't have funds. What had happened is little Innocent had been pushed across to live with another man. The man had abused him. And as a result, Innocent was angry, went onto the streets during the day, sucked glue because he couldn't live with himself. He masked his pain by inhaling glue. And the consequence of glue and the lifestyle of being abused was that his areas had been ulcerated, and so the soap got into those areas. It was this scream, this dreaded scream, that woke my world up. I was not exposed, had not been exposed to this world, and I suddenly realized it was no longer good enough just to provide food and clean clothes. We had to provide a safe, secure Christian home to get these children off the street.
They found a safe haven in 9 stick-and-mud houses that were 16 square meters each. These were owned by Kevin's father, who graciously let them use them for the children. The kitchen was made of corrugated iron with a wood fire stove, and the toilet was a pit latrine. The meals for the 45 children who were rescued off the street consisted of donated beans for breakfast, lunch, and supper. These stick-and-mud houses eventually became the Emafini Teen Challenge Men's Centre, as God's gracious provision made it possible to start a rehabilitation centre to free the youth of drug and solvent dependence.
I was in a prayer meeting in Ember Barn when there was a knock on the door, and the social worker for Ember Barn, who then became the Deputy Prime Minister of Swaziland, was at the door. I went to greet her, and she asked me if I could meet a young man that needed some help. I went to the door expecting a young man of 14 or 15 years old and found a 9-year-old boy. I'll call him John for his own security. John's mother was dying of HIV/AIDS. His father had died of AIDS, and none of the family members were prepared to look after the child. Constance asked me to look after this young man, and she said, he's not a boy, he's a young man. That every morning he gets up and sells fruit and veg in a place like this, with the fruit and veg that he sells, he makes profit. With the profit, he leaves his home, which is in Msunduza, a tin shack, catches a bus 40 kilometers down to Manzini, where he would feed his mom. He would cook a meal and feed his mother at 9 years old. He would wash her, and he would read one verse a day to her. When I heard that story, I realized not only was government asking us to take care of this child, officially take care of children coming from a background of HIV and AIDS, but God was too. How could I, as a Christian, consider myself to be a Christian and not provide a home for this 9-year-old child? Here, this 9-year-old child was looking after his mother, was cooking for his mother, was washing his mother, was running a small business for his mother. Therefore, I, as a Christian, at 30 years old at the time, should have to do the same. I felt compelled and led of the Lord to do this. This was of the Lord.
Moved by John's plight, and with only 4,000 rand, the first children's home was started in a rented house. Social welfare continued to bring children like little John into the home. While there, they received a very generous gift from the Palmer family, who provided 4 houses in Isolweni known as 10 Downing Street. The children lived there until Teen Challenge UK, through John Macy, came across to purchase a 15-acre farm at Hawani for new children's homes to be built. 10 Downing Street then became a life skills centre, and later Elisutweni Teen Challenge Centre for abused women. The most important part of the healing process for the ladies at the Women's Centre is for them to come to a place of forgiveness for what they have been through. Hawani Children's Homes continue to grow, with up to 100 children on the property in homes of 6 to 8 children per house, cared for by a house mother. The list of children needing a home continued to grow, and God again provided a solution. KPMG liquidators approached CMS to ask them if they would consider buying Bulembu, an abandoned mining town. And so the story of Bulembu began, with a trip to the town where it was agreed it was a possible solution to accommodating children in a secure and safe environment. Donations in 2006 from Canada, USA, Challenge Ministries, and most notably Neil Reichenberg, here in Swaziland as the largest investor, made the purchase of Bulembu possible. A new partnership was formed between CMS and BMS. CMS was able to take 100 children from Hawani up to Bulembu to begin the homes there in what is now known as Bulembu Ministries Swaziland. These two ministries are blessed to share the same board of directors. While Bulembu continued to develop as a place of hope and restoration, one home and one school at a time, God gave Kevin a further vision to reach rural areas in Swaziland. Through planting churches in rural areas, they were able to reach the most deprived communities. In addition to a church, they built a pastor's home, a children's home for orphaned and vulnerable children, as well as a preschool. Many of the surrounding families in these areas are severely affected by HIV/AIDS and have suffered great loss. By planting these in-community by community churches, they were able to provide assistance and to teach primary healthcare and first aid in and through the local church. Any child being abused in that area could be referred by social welfare to that church, and any child that needed to be extracted for his or her own safety could be taken to Bulembu. Today, 10 ICBCs have been planted, with the long-term vision to establish 60 ICBCs throughout Swaziland. The ICBC vision was set in motion. Bulembu was growing from strength to strength. The men's program was turning out wonderful young men of tremendous character who became a blessing to their communities. The Women's Centre was seeing women restored to their true identity and purpose. Yet still, God was saying there was more. And so, 9 years after CMS started, it was time to plant Potter's Wheel Church, which began in Cooper Centre with a handful of congregation members. As Potterswheel Church grew, it moved to Emafini Conference Centre. Potterswheel Church now serves as the administrative central head office for Bulembu Ministries, Bulembu Enterprise, Emafini Men's Centre, Elisutweni Women's Centre, Hawani Children's Homes, and the In-Community by Community projects throughout Swaziland.
Thank you for journeying with us over the last 20 years. It's been a privilege to see the lives that have been impacted, the lives that have been changed, and seeing changed lives change lives. But the story has just begun. As we look at Bulembu Ministries and Challenge Ministries becoming one family, synergizing, working together underneath one board with one vision to reach the nation for kingdom transformation, one life at a time, we're excited to see the next 20 years of the children and the leaders being developed into significant people of influence, filled with wisdom, filled with grace, filled with leadership skills because of your journey with us. We're excited for the next 20 years. We are better together.